It's almost as if he can't understand why everyone else can't do it. It's a bit like Jim Clark, who apparently couldn't understand why no one else could go as quickly. But, he is very good.
7 World Championships, 91 wins over 19 years in Formula One. Michael Schumacher, until recently, was the most successful driver in F1 history. But many of us, myself included, ask, how did he manage to be that fast for so many seasons? What exactly in his driving style let him dominate races, and how did his style differ from other drivers? Schumacher raced in F1 for a very long time, so it would be unfair to say his driving style never changed. Still, every driver leaves a signature on whatever car they sit in, and you can usually spot something unique about them. Often a driver excels only for a certain period. Regulations change every few years, and car concepts can be completely different, as they will be next year. One of the most important skills for a driver is the ability to adapt to the machinery under them and to the changing conditions around them, even within a single race. The car's behavior and the tire's behavior can change, not to mention the weather, and the ability to adapt is rare and crucial. Schumacher definitely had that ability. It's actually easier to see the differences in Schumacher's style when you compare his 1990s driving with his 2000s driving than it is to compare different drivers today. Back then, the cars were much less similar in concept than they are now. You can confidently say Schumacher drove quite differently when he started at Jordan and Benetton versus when he finished at Mercedes. Yet there are consistencies in a driver's style, often forged during the karting years, that become a sort of driving philosophy. And that's what we'll examine today, much like the video I made about Ayrton Senna. If you want the very short answer to why Schumacher was so fast, here's Schumacher himself. I think the main ability I have is that I have a good feel for the limit, a very consistent sense of the limit. I can drive the car almost 100% on the limit, and that's probably the distinctive feature. So, for those wanting a more detailed answer, stick around. We've heard Michael talk about feeling the car and driving at the edge of its abilities. How did that translate into lap speed? Let's look at comparative telemetry of Michael Schumacher and Johnny Herbert at Silverstone. On the telemetry graph, the blue line shows throttle position, how much the accelerator is depressed. You can see the line rise and fall. The top is 100% throttle, the bottom is 0. As you approach a corner, the line falls to the bottom, then gently rises as you accelerate away. When Schumacher gets back on the throttle, he does it very smoothly. And that contrasts sharply with what we saw in my previous video about another driver. Link in the top right corner and the description if you want to check it. Let's compare data for a notional corner called Old Bridge, which was taken at almost full throttle at about 250 km/h. The blue line is Schumacher's throttle work. You can see he approaches at full speed, eases the throttle gently, and then very gradually and smoothly adds throttle back before fully letting off to brake for the next corner. Now look at the other driver, Johnny Herbert, shown in red. He stays on the throttle longer, then lets go much more abruptly, almost throwing it off. That kind of abrupt change can easily destabilize the car. He then goes back on the throttle, but in a clumsy, rather rough way. Look at the speed trace. The blue is Schumacher, the red is Herbert. Schumacher gets up to 250 km/h, eases slightly as he lifts, and then accelerates again. You can see speed drop sharply when he brakes for the next corner. Herbert approaches a little slower, because he got a worse exit from the previous corner. And he slows far more than Michael because he dumped the throttle much harder. The most telling graph is the steering angle. The blue curve shows Schumacher's steering. You can see him turn the car into the corner. The steering trace is initially straight, then in the middle of the graph, which corresponds to the middle of the corner on track. You see little zigzags. Those are micro-corrections with the wheel that Schumacher makes through the middle of the corner, showing he's right at the limit throughout. with a touch of slip. By contrast, Herbert steers much more smoothly, which indicates he's not quite at the limit. And as a result, he loses 0.2 just in that corner and 1.5 seconds on the lap. It's important to say that the steering trace might make it look like Schumacher is violently whipping the wheel. But that's not the case. The movements are extremely small and precise. Any large steering input can actually destabilize the car and cost grip. Drivers keep talking about driving on the edge, but what does that actually mean? Pushing a car to the limit means it's literally sliding over the asphalt. The limit is where the tire deforms on the surface and the car slips a little through the corner. There's a common misconception that a little bit of sliding equals the absolute limit. People think that's all the car is capable of. But that's not true. The limit is not a single point. It's more like a band or a line, a continuum, where driving style and technique determine where that limit sits. With excellent technique, you can effectively push that grip threshold higher. With poor technique, you can reduce the usable grip, bringing the limit closer and costing you lap time. In every corner, to be on the limit and get the most out of the car, all 4 tires must be working at near 100% through each phase of the corner. The ability to stay on that edge, from entry through the apex and onto the exit on every corner, every lap, is what made Schumacher special. For an example of his technique, look at the lap that gave him pole at the 2004 Hungarian Grand Prix. When analyzing a driver's style, you need to watch the steering. From the steering inputs, you can read the car's behavior and see whether there's understeer or oversteer. We see Schumacher's rear end slip a little. The car is literally on a knife edge as the corner approaches. If you watch the wheel, you see he turns the car in, then stops the steering movement. In that state, the car continues to rotate because the rear is slipping and swinging around the front. The car essentially turns itself. That's what we call rotation. The rear stepping out to help the car turn. Rotation is a change of the car's attitude toward oversteer during cornering. It's often induced at corner entry to point the car toward the exit, so you can get on the throttle earlier. This technique can also be used mid-corner in long turns. The goal of rotation is to bring steering inputs back towards zero, so the steering ends up straight while the car is still turning. This is not a mistake like catching the car from oversteer. It's deliberate. It happens because Schumacher wants the car to turn itself. Every corner looks like something Schumacher couldn't understand why others couldn't do the same. It's a bit like Jim Clark, who famously couldn't fathom why anyone else couldn't lap as fast as he did. Let's break Schumacher's driving into 3 parts: entry, apex, and exit, and dig into the interesting details. I watched him in Silverstone tests, especially how he took the Beckett's sequence, a rapid right-left-right-right sequence, and the speed he carried through it. I literally stood there amazed. His entry speed was unbelievable. Entry is usually the trickiest part. A lot happens there. You must brake and slow the car while simultaneously turning it into the corner, so finding the ideal balance is very hard. It's a complex sequence that was especially difficult in the 1990s and early 2000s cars. If you get everything absolutely right, you can gain a lot of time on the lap. If you make a small mistake at any stage, you can easily lose 2 or 3 tenths in one corner. That's where Schumacher's magic happened. The right actions at each stage of the corner, the correct distribution of speed, and the ability to make the car rotate at the apex. That was his real talent. So what exactly did Schumacher do at corner entry that made him quicker than others? It's not as simple as braking later than everyone else. All drivers know you must carry speed into the corner and brake as late as possible to be fast. But it's not just about braking late. There's a smoothness the car needs on entry, and the driver must feel that and adapt. Historically, drivers either focused on entry speed at the expense of exit, or they used a conservative entry to maximize the exit. You had to choose one of the two. Schumacher managed to get a high entry speed, turn the car more through the middle than most drivers, straighten the exit, and maximize acceleration out of every corner. Concretely, he would turn the car a few degrees more at the apex, so the car was angled slightly more and the exit line could be a bit straighter, the platform of the car a bit flatter, meaning he could get on the throttle as early as possible. To understand why this helps, remember that tire grip with the track is a limited resource used for acceleration, braking, or cornering. That grip resource can't be 100% used simultaneously for full acceleration and full cornering. By inducing a little extra rotation at the apex, the car needs to do less steering work to turn, freeing up more grip for acceleration down a straighter exit line. The beauty of getting on the throttle earlier is that the speed you win in the corner is compounded down the next straight, which strongly affects lap time. So Schumacher's car might be a touch slower mid-corner, but that was more than compensated by much stronger entry and exit. And what's truly impressive is that he did this corner after corner, lap after lap, across an entire Grand Prix. The difficulty of doing that in a 1990s F1 car is simply enormous, and Schumacher made almost zero mistakes while doing it. If you're still watching, let me steal 5 seconds to ask you to subscribe and like the channel. Schumacher had an absolute sense of the limit and the ability to keep the car literally on a knife edge. That's what made him so fast. You can see this when he drives in the wet. His style allowed him to feel more, to remain at the limit, and by doing so, he got more information from the car and the track about the surrounding conditions, which in turn allowed him to expand the car's usable limit. It was unquestionably a beautiful driving style. You can also check out my channel for videos on the driving techniques of other legends such as Ayrton Senna and Fernando Alonso. If you liked the video, remember to like and subscribe so you don't miss new uploads. You can also support the channel financially. Sponsorship or donations links are in the description. I'd be very grateful. Happy New Year to everyone. I wish you all the best. Success to you in the coming year. And for everyone watching this after New Year's, happy belated New Year.
I think the main ability I have is that I have a good feeling for the limit, a very consistent feeling for the limit, and I'm able to run the car for almost 100% on the limit. And that's probably the difference in style, where someone has the ability to do that in the entry of the corner, but not in mid-corner, and then the exit again, or the other way around. And I can almost do this all the way around the corner.